All right, let's talk about an art movement that found masterpieces in the most ordinary, everyday places, pop art. And you know what? It all starts with a few things you probably have lying around your house right now. First up, imagine an object you'd find in any kitchen. Something totally mass-produced, something you would never, ever think twice about.
Okay, next, grab a piece of what some people would call low culture. Something cheap, maybe a little disposable, definitely meant for fun, not for a fancy museum wall.
And for the final ingredient, throw in an image that is literally everywhere. A face created by the Hollywood machine, a symbol of modern celebrity.
You mix those everyday things together, and what do you get? Not just a painting. You get a completely radical new way of looking at the world. You get pop art. So how in the world did this happen? Well, pop art didn't just quietly arrive. It exploded onto the scene right in the middle of the 20th century. It wasn't born in some quiet, stuffy studio. It was a loud reaction to the flashy, consumer-driven world that was taking over after the war. And that's really what pop art is all about at its core. It took the stuff society was becoming obsessed with, brands, celebrities, ads, all of it, and slapped it right onto a canvas. The whole idea was that art shouldn't be locked away in museums for a select few. It should actually reflect the lives people were living. But here's the thing. Pop art didn't just appear out of thin air. Nope, it stood on the shoulders of some earlier rebels. You had Dadaism way back, which basically made fun of the super serious art world by using everyday objects. Then, in the 50s, this group in London called the Independent Group started really digging into American mass culture, which pretty much set the perfect stage for this new movement.
So, what actually makes a piece of art pop? Well, it turns out there's a pretty clear playbook, a kind of recipe that gives the whole movement its unmistakable high-energy vibe. Let's break it down.
First, the imagery is stuff you know instantly. Think Campbell's soup cans or Marilyn Monroe's face. The colors are super bright and bold, designed to grab your eyeballs just like an advertisement. There's almost always this layer of irony, kind of like a wink to the audience about how absurd it all is. And the artists used cool new techniques like screen printing and collage, which really blurred the lines between fine art and commercial work.
And this really puts it in a nutshell. Traditional art was always seen as subtle, serious, one of a kind, and, let's be honest, for the elite. Pop art just flipped the script completely. It was loud, it was funny, it embraced mass production, and it was meant for everybody. It was a total democratization of art.
Of course, a movement is nothing without its pioneers, right? And pop art had some of the most iconic, game-changing artists of the entire century. These people weren't just painters, they were full-on cultural commentators.
So you've got Andy Warhol, the absolute superstar of the movement. He used screen printing to churn out images and famously said he wanted to be a machine. Then there's Lichtenstein, who took little comic book panels, blew them up to massive sizes, and painstakingly recreated those little Ben-Day dots, basically forcing the art world to take comics seriously. And over in Britain, you had Richard Hamilton, who used collage to pick apart and critique that perfect American dream being sold in all the magazines. So, at the end of the day, these artists weren't just painting pretty pictures. They were holding up a giant mirror to society. Warhol soup cans made you question what original even means. Lichtenstein's comics completely blurred the line between commercial junk and fine art. They were making the mundane monumental. And this brings us to the great debate, the big question right at the heart of pop art that people are still arguing about. Was this whole movement a giant celebration of consumer culture, or was it a really sharp critique of it?
Seriously? Think about it. When Andy Warhol paints a Coca-Cola bottle, is he saying, wow, this is beautiful? Or is he saying, hey, look at this silly thing we've all become obsessed with? The answer is meant to be blurry. And that's exactly where all the power of the art comes from.
And nothing captures this fuzzy line better than Warhol's own words. By saying he wanted to be a machine, he just tossed out that whole idea of the emotional, suffering artist. He totally embraced the cold, impersonal world of mass production. And it leaves us all wondering, was he making fun of it? Or was he just becoming part of it?
As you can imagine, this completely divided the art world. Some critics were asking, is this just dumb and anti-intellectual? Or is it a really smart look at society? By leaning into commercialism so hard, a lot of people felt it was a betrayal of what art was supposed to be, turning it into just another product you buy and sell. But hey, despite all that controversy, or maybe because of it, pop art's influence has been absolutely massive, and it's lasted for decades. So let's just take a minute to look at why this movement from over half a century ago still feels so incredibly relevant today.
I mean, get this, for over 70 years, the ideas that came out of pop art have been shaping the world all around us, a lot of times in ways we don't even consciously notice.
Its DNA is literally everywhere. The bold colors, the repetition, that mix of high and low culture. You see it on album covers, in the clothes we wear, and in countless advertisements. See, pop art didn't just stay in the gallery. It totally leaked out and changed the visual language of our entire culture. And the themes that pop art was obsessed with, celebrity worship, mass media, the power of a brand. I mean, come on, those are the exact same themes that define our digital lives today. It was a movement that was decades ahead of its time.
So, this is the final thought I really want to leave you with. When you see an influencer posting a sponsored ad, or a meme goes viral and becomes a global phenomenon overnight, aren't we all just living in the world that pop art predicted? A world where that line between our culture and what we're buying, between art and advertising, has pretty much disappeared. What do you think?